All right, welcome everybody. I see people are still joining, so we're going to start officially in 1 minute. So use this time if you're just joining. Please grab your favorite beverage and also grab either your phone or make sure you have a pad of paper nearby because you're going to want to take notes. All right, I'm going to get started. So my name is Denise Cope. I am president of Affordable Degrees Abroad. And I am so excited to be able to share this with you. I do monthly webinars to help US families and students really get oriented to all of the options abroad. So this month we are featuring getting your undergrad in Ireland. And I'm so fortunate to have Education in Ireland here and also two students, Sarah and Rachel. And you're gonna get to meet everybody really soon. And I'm just going to say, when I was looking at undergrad or grad programs, nobody talked to me about doing my undergrad or grad degree abroad. And I really wish they had. And so I feel like recently things have really started shifting in the United States. And US students and families are considering, oh, I get this. I should be including an abroad program, an abroad degree on my list. And I think there are two reasons for this. One is I think US higher education has increased, and a lot of families are thinking, are there other options out there? And then secondly, the quality of education abroad, for some institutions it's abroad have been there for a long time. Others have really been working hard on increasing their international rankings within the last 20 years. And so I think it's the convergence of these two things that's driving a lot of US students to really start to consider doing their degree abroad. So I hope this is informative for you. My job as the moderator of this whole thing is to make sure you learn a lot and you're having a good time and you know what your next steps are. So if I've done my job, all of that will be true. So let's move on to the next slide. So I want to use this time as a few people are jumping on. I want to know who's in the Zoom room. So please go to the chat feature. Make sure it says everyone so everyone can see who you are. And put in there, are you a student, parent, college counselor, an independent educational consultant? Maybe you're wearing multiple hats. Maybe none of these particular items fit you. So just put in who you are so we can start to see who's out there. We have parent Irish born, student, awesome. Independent consultant, student. Great. Mother, I see. Parent from Ireland, I see. Student, awesome. This is great. High school student, parent, student, consultant, awesome. All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to see there's actually a really wide array of folks that are here. And what I want to make sure we're using the chat feature for, at any point, the chat is really about uplifting. And so at any point, I feel free to start building community and trying to uplift each other. There's a lot of Irish connection here. I'm really enjoying this. All right, moving on to the next slide, please, Brayden. And I want to also use the chat, same thing, set it to everyone, but where have you been abroad? And I'm particularly keen also to know, like, do you have an Irish connection, or is there anything out there? It's good for, and if you haven't been abroad, don't worry about it. Just say, hey, I don't have this experience, but I'm really curious. And I know some of you also may be dual nationals, so also put that in there. I'm just curious to see what sort of your own international experiences and what excites you about doing a degree abroad. All right, so there's a lot going on here. Senegal, DRC, Chad, Zimbabwe, Switzerland, go Nicole. Many places, including Ireland. Nice. All right, Ireland and Italy, Irish American. This is great. Thank you. And keep it coming too. Wow, there's so many. France, Portugal. This is like makes me want to travel. All right, thank you, everybody. All right, Braden, next one, please. So let me just do a quick introduction. My name is Denise Cope. I am president of Affordable Degrees Abroad. I have 20 years of experience in higher education. Most of that time was in international education. And I have sent 4,000 students to around 150 universities abroad. Most of that time was when I was working at University of Denver, and basically sent a lot of students to a lot of different institutions. And myself, I have lived abroad for 6 years in Turkey and France, Morocco, and Japan. And this is honestly, it's something near and dear to my heart. And I feel that I want more students to have this opportunity because it is so transformational, and it creates, I'd say, a worldview that you can't take away. And so I want more of that for all of us. And Braden, please move on. So I opened my business, Affordable Degrees Abroad, 2 years ago. And in part, I did it because I noticed that US higher education was becoming more and more expensive. And I was very concerned about that. And I really felt like I knew of another way. And so my mission with Affordable Degrees Abroad is to be a guide for students to sort through all of the choices. And I will say there's a lot of choice. So how do you know what's a good fit? How do you know what the support levels are, the academics are like? So I'm just trying to be helpful and to be a guide and to inspire US students to do their degree abroad. All right, moving on. And Sarah's a colleague of mine from Education in Ireland. Sarah, do you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sarah Dart. I'm the Vice President of Education in Ireland. We're the arm of the Irish government that supports colleges and universities in Ireland in bringing students from overseas to study in Ireland. And I'm based up in Boston, Massachusetts.
Awesome. And Sarah and I actually had come from study abroad world, so we've known each other prior to this. And so next, I want to introduce both Hannah and Rachel. So these are sort of the superstars of the whole event. Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Rachel. I just graduated from a 4-year degree in international business from the University of Limerick, in Limerick, Ireland. I started in the fall of 2017, and I've just now finished in the last month. I officially graduated, even though I was done in May. But yeah, it was a really amazing time, and I'm really glad I did it.
Great. And Hannah?
Hi, yeah, I am Hannah. I did a Bachelor of Commerce in University College Dublin. So right in Dublin. I graduated in 2018, so a few years ago now. Likewise, really enjoyed my time. Originally was from California, went over for college in UCD, worked there for a little while after, and I'm now back in California, but very happy to talk through our experiences today.
Great. So I want everybody use the chat. Please send some love and appreciation to Hannah and Rachel. They're showing up at 8 p.m. at the goodness of their heart to be able to share their stories. So please say thank you, shower them with love. Also, while you're at it, please shower Braden. He is helping on the back end, doing with tech support. So, so please shower, give a little bit of love to them. And Braden, can you move on? All right, so here's what we're up to for today. So we're going to talk about what is the value of a degree abroad. We have an overview of Irish universities. We're going to look at entry requirements. We'll talk through financial aid, so everything from FAFSA, 529 plans, GI Bill, and scholarships. And then we'll transition to making it happen. Are you a good candidate? What are your next steps? And all throughout, you're going to hear from Hannah and Rachel and Sarah. But we've also reserved around 20 minutes at the end for all of your Q&A too. So I want to just give a little bit of guidance here. I'm sure all of you have done like a gazillion Zoom things, but please use the chat to uplift and to share. And then use the Q&A at any point. If you have a question, pop it into the Q&A. And that's at the bottom. You will see, if it's possible for us to type an answer while it's going on, we'll do that. If not, we will capture it in the 20 minutes also at the end. And then additionally, if some of the questions don't get answered, we'll try to capture them another way too. So you're here for a full hour, I hope. So let's get started. Oh yeah, I should say, so there is a free consultation contest happening. So if you are a parent or a student, you can win my level 1 package. So this is your best fit list, and it's a consult, 60-minute consult. It's a $299 value. If you're an IEC or counselor, you can win a 60-minute consult just to have any question answered and sort of sending resources your way. Stay tuned. I will, in about 30 minutes, give you the details of how to enter for that. All right, value of a degree abroad. All right, number 1 question I get is, hey, is it really cheaper for me to do my degree abroad? And I will say there's a range. There are still some good deals in the United States. So I think sometimes it's wise to have both US and abroad options. But I will say the general answer is yes. We'll go over Ireland specifically today. To give you an idea, it could be anywhere from $0 tuition, and those are in Germany and Norway. And this is for US students, to, I mean, it could be $30,000. So there's a whole range in here. And Ireland is typically around $14,000 to $23,000 a year. So we'll go over that. So that's a huge question I always get. The second question I always get is this a real degree? So how do you tell if it's a real degree? So I'm going to suggest that we throw away World News and World Reports for this. I know that there's a lot of controversy already regarding World News and World Reports. The reason I think it's not as useful in this context is it tends to be really US centric. So I'm going to turn you on to 2 other ones that you should be paying attention to. And this is a guide to help you understand where the university sits in the world. So the 2 are QS rankings and Times Higher Education rankings. And this is a way just to tell, hey, where does my university sit in the whole world? Now, rankings, as you know, mean something and don't mean something. They're usually research driven. So what's another way to tell? Another way to tell is to look at industry accredited institutions. So let's say, for example, you're really interested in a business program, and both Hannah and Rachel did business. So you're going to want to find an institution that has industry accreditation. So for business, that's AACSB or EQUIS. For engineering, that's ABET, I bet. What's amazing about Ireland is from a business perspective, some of the institutions are triple accredited. That's highly unusual in the United States. So that's a way, though, to tell, hey, what's the quality of my degree? So you look at that particular industry accreditation. Finally, you also get to develop global skills and networks. So I like to say, like, study abroad is built into this. You are doing your full degree abroad, and guess what? You get to study for the full time abroad. And then sometimes some of the programs also have an additional study abroad time that you can do either in Europe or in Canada or elsewhere. And then another benefit is not all countries, some countries have, it's called a post-study work visa. So this is an ability to work overseas after you've completed your program. So in Ireland, it's 1 year or 2 years. In UK, it's 2 years. New Zealand is 3 years. Australia could be anywhere from 1 to 4 years, depending on your program. US, in case you're curious, is 1 year for international students. So I feel like this is a tremendous value, because then you've got the paperwork in order to get a job abroad in that country if you choose. All right, moving on. One of the questions I always get has to do about financing a degree abroad. And there are many ways to do this. Most parents and students are surprised to learn that FAFSA, so FAFSA stands for sort of those student loans that you can take out. FAFSA works with around 400-ish international universities. So you can use FAFSA loans for that. Unfortunately, Pell Grants don't work abroad. Now, those same 400 institutions also then are allowed to use 529 college plan saving money. So if you are a parent and have this, it's important to know which institutions are on this list. And the majority of the institutions we're talking through today fall into both of these categories. And then it's also good to know some families have a whole variety of either GI Bill. And here, what this means is veterans or family members can use it for tuition and living expenses. There are quite a few international institutions that are approved for use of doing a degree abroad. There is a database, it's called WEAMS. I've found it's sometimes not always up to date, so make sure you additionally ask the institution you're interested in, just to double check. So if you want more information, be sure, I've written some blogs on both FAFSA abroad and 529 college savings plans. So be sure to snap a pic so you can go and read those later at your leisure. And Hannah and Rachel, did you have anything that you wanted to jump in here about financing your degree?
In addition to FAFSA and getting federal student loans, I've had no problem getting Sallie Mae loans privately done through the University of Limerick as well. So
great, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, perfect. And that's true. So all of those 400-ish institutions are also eligible for Sallie Mae loans too, but you want to start with FAFSA, which will give you a lower interest rate. All right, moving on. So the game in the United States is we usually start with a super high price tag, and then we try to whittle it down to something reasonable. What I feel, it's a slightly different game abroad. One is you start with a lower price tag, and there's still scholarships, but there's usually less chasing. So I want to turn you on to a few things I think that are unique to Ireland. So one is the Irish government provides 60 scholarships of 1 year study at an Irish university for international students. And this is honestly amazing, but not only is it a full tuition waiver for that year, you also get 10,000 euro for living expenses or airfare or whatever you need to use it for. So I think it's an amazing opportunity. And if this is of interest, I know Sarah will can also talk about how they can find that from the Education in Ireland website. There also are a lot of universities, and this is no different in Ireland, they're going to provide also scholarships for international students, either be for international students or for that program. And so that should be something that you're paying attention to. So make sure you ask the university, what are the scholarship opportunities for X program that I'm going for? Hannah and Rachel, did you have anything to jump in, or Sarah?
No, I've applied for that scholarship twice. It's fairly easy to do. I mean, I've never made it myself, but yeah, just a little bit of written and it should be fine.
Yeah, I know. I applied for the International Student Scholarship through UCD, and it is a separate application from your application to the program. So make sure you look out for that. But it covers a wide range of percentage tuition, so it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I've dropped a link into the chat for the Education in Ireland scholarship page, but I can't mention, it's not just UCD, many of the universities offer scholarships for international students. So if you're looking at a particular institution, definitely look into that aspect of it.
Awesome, thank you, Sarah. All right, Braden, please. All right, so I always want to make sure you know the institutions that are in Ireland. And this is not a comprehensive list, but these are the ones we're featuring today. And there's a lot. And so you'll probably notice, right? So there's Ireland, and at the top is Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is geographically on the island of Ireland, but it is politically part of the UK. So it shares a lot more commonalities, I'd say, with UK system, but I know there's a lot of connection between Northern Ireland and Ireland in regards to educational opportunities. So we've got Queen's University in Belfast, and Braden, can you sort of move the mouse? Awesome. And Dublin has a lot, obviously, going on here. So we've got Dublin City University, which I like because it's a very practical, if you're a hands-on person. There's Trinity College. We're going to get into sort of the amazing ranking of Trinity. There's University College Dublin, which also has a good ranking. There's TU Dublin, Technological University Dublin, and also the Royal College Surgeons of Ireland. Maynooth, which is really close to Ireland, and so there's Maynooth, or to Dublin is also nearby. And then let's go north to south. We've got on the west coast, we've got Galway, so National University of Ireland in Galway. And then in Limerick, Shannon area, there's University of Limerick. That is where Rachel went. Mary Immaculate College, Limerick Institute of Tech, and Shannon College of Hotel Management. And finally, in the south, we've got in Cork, UCC University College Cork. And so obviously there's huge range. We're going to get into some of the nuances. This is really sort of a general overview. I just want to make sure you feel like you understand sort of the full range of what's possible. All right. Sarah, is there anything else you wanted to add at this juncture? No? Okay. All right. Braden, please move on. All right, so quick facts. So let's start getting into the nitty-gritty of Irish institutions. So the starting price tends to be lower than what you're going to find at a number of US institutions. So starting price is, generally speaking, $14,000 to $23,000 a year. Now, some programs will be higher, particularly if they're specialty programs or if there are lab fees associated with it. So I feel, generally speaking, it's a pretty good price point. Cost of living, now it can range, but this $10,000 to $15,000 is sort of what's suggested. $10,000 would be like, for example, in Limerick. So places outside of Dublin are going to be cheaper. Dublin is bloody expensive. So 15,000, and it sort of, if you're living like a queen, then it could even go up from there. So that just gives you an idea of what to prepare for. So we already talked about FAFSA and 529 plans. And the good news is the vast majority of these do take both FAFSA and 529, and therefore also Sallie Mae. And with the GI Bill, many of them do also take the GI Bill. Again, check with the institution. So one thing to notice is many of the programs are 3-year, some are 4-year undergrad degrees. So it's a little bit different in Europe. Many of the degrees are 3. And so that also gives you some cost savings. The other thing I just wanted to highlight, which is true for a lot of programs abroad, you can start your medical degree at undergrad. So it's a total of a 6-year program, and that includes your undergrad and your medical degree. The thing to pay attention to here is you have to really be clear you know what you're up to. In all of these cases, you are not applying to the institution directly like you would in the States and then later choosing your program. You are applying to your program or to the major. Now, Sarah pointed out earlier that there are a few, I would say, like liberal arts programs where you can do more what you'd feel like in the States, where you've got some gen ed classes and then you choose your major. But for the most part, you're really applying directly to that particular program. All right, moving on. All right, this is so fun. All right, I love this part around why Ireland. I'm going to start with QS and Times Higher Ed. So I really want to make sure you're oriented to what this means. I think all of you can go on at your leisure and look up QS rankings or Times Higher Ed rankings. It's just sort of fun. But let me give you a sense. So I was just on there today to see what the latest rankings were. And this is 2022 rankings. Just so you understand, QS #1 in the world is MIT. #2 is Oxford. Forgetting #3, Princeton is 20. So a little bit different than US World News and World Reports. Now, let me orient you a little bit more. Tufts, awesome institution in the States. It is 275 in the world. Still a really good ranking. DU, that's the institution that I used to work at, University of Denver. It is ranked 751. So I'm going to read off a few of the rankings. These are QS rankings for some Irish institutions, just so you can be amazed. All right, Trinity, this is sort of, has a really great ranking of 101. Remember, Tufts is 275. UCD, so University College Denver, so that is where Hannah went, and that's 173. So higher than Tufts. Queen's Belfast, 216, also higher than Tufts. National University of Ireland is 258. UCC, University College Cork, is 298. So those are in the Tufts range. And University of Limerick is 501. So that's considerably higher than the University of Denver. So I'm just trying to orient you to like, oh, wait a second. There's some really awesome institutions in Ireland. All right, so that's the highly desired qualifications. Another reason students enjoy it is Ireland is just warm and friendly, and it's easy to connect with people and make friends and feel connected. And later I'm going to ask Hannah and Rachel to talk if they've got any special stories about that particular element. The other thing I think Ireland excels at is they do a great job of incorporating practical learning, and in some cases also network building. I think it's particularly true with business and tech, but it's one thing that I think Ireland really shines up. There tends to be with each of these institutions high employability rates after graduation. And I think it speaks to that practical learning and network building. And then I mentioned earlier, it's called a stay back visa, work study. It's a work visa that you get after studying. So 1 year undergrad or 2 year grad is generally how that works. All right, moving on, Braden. Oh, wait, before we do, Hannah and Rachel, is there anything you wanted to share here in regards to any of these, either practical learning? I know, Rachel, you talked about your 4th year.
Yeah, so I did international business, and part of that was, well, it was only 3 years of classes, so it was basically a 3-year bachelor's degree. However, it did require that one of the years in the middle was both a 9-month work placement in my field where I worked full-time, I was paid for full-time work, and then I also had to do a study abroad, which they actually sent me to Canada. I didn't really get a choice in the matter. But yeah, it was really practical, and I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Hannah?
Yeah, speaking to the practicality of it a bit, you really jump into the material of the program that you've chosen, so you're doing 3 or 4, depending on your program, solid years of learning in that selected course. But as well, for my program doing commerce, I was surrounded by Irish students, but as well, there was a ton of international students in my particular course that were either studying abroad for the 6 months or were doing like I was doing their full degree. So you were kind of networking and learning how to work with a diverse group of people constantly, which is, I felt I came out of my program with a lot of soft skills as well as what I had learned in my classes.
Great, thank you. All right, now for real, Braden, we're moving on. Thank you. All right, so I want to talk through some entry requirements. What I think will be refreshing to learn is generally abroad, and this is very true for Ireland, pretty straightforward. And so each program has their own entry requirements. So it's not necessarily per institution, it's per program. So there's a whole range in here. So you'll notice when you look at all of this. So with most US students are going to be doing one of these top boxes. US students are going to be using a US diploma, and there's usually some type of GPA requirement, anywhere from, I've seen 3.0, I've seen 1.4, really most of the time it's 3.7, and these are unweighted. And then there are also SAT scores that they're looking at, and that could be anywhere from 1090 to 1470, or an ACT score of 22 to 32. So those are the ranges. It varies vastly depending on which program we're looking at. Or a US student could do an IB. And so generally those are going to be 24 to 36 scored. I included a foundation year here, but in reality, most students are not doing that. US students are not doing that. I just wanted to make sure you knew that many of these institutions have foundation year. So that's a year that a student would do beforehand to sort of prepare them to enter into a university. And then some of the programs, actually, I think most of them have a statement of purpose. These are super straightforward essays, like so straightforward. You don't need to write a lot about blah, blah, about your backstory. You have to describe why you are a good fit for this program and you understand it. It's straightforward. Some programs have letters of rec, many of them don't need it. only specialty programs, for example, like with art, will you be including a portfolio or something along those lines? And application deadlines, many are rolling. There's usually a priority deadline and you want to hit those. Every institution's a little different, but sometime around January or February. So I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. So my son is really interested in doing his undergrad in Ireland. He's also really wants to do English/creative writing. So he could do this by a 1090 SAT. There's no math specialty score here. So he doesn't have to submit it. That's just a composite. Or he could do 24 IB. Again, no math. Yay. All right, commerce. This is the program Hannah did. And you would need a 1380 with a 3.7 GPA and a 600 math score. That's the SAT. Or 33 IB with 6 standard math or a 4 score for the higher math. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of what the ranges are. Engineering is even higher, so it tends to be around 1380 with a 3.7. You need a lot more math here. So here, this is where all the specialty scores, either through AP or the SAT 2s, all of that's where all of this comes into play. So I'm just giving you a range, right? So it's per program. But what's great about it is it's pretty straightforward. Hannah and Rachel, did you have anything to share in regards to your own experience with, doing the application?
I took the ACT. I found the University of Limerick on the Common app, and I just submitted everything there. It was pretty easy, yeah.
Yeah, I had done 2 years of undergrad in California and decided to make this change. But again, the application was super simple. I basically sent a transcript of GPA, was still able to use my ACT scores from high school, and that was it.
Awesome.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick to say that in light of what's happened over the last year and a half with access to testing, the institutions in Ireland are what's called test flexible, meaning they'll accept an SAT score, an ACT score, or usually it's maybe 3 AP scores or IB scores. And that may vary slightly by institution, but they're all willing to be flexible given the testing situation in the US. And the other thing that I think is really important to know is that when you apply for a program, you should have a pretty good idea of whether or not you would be accepted, because it is so much based on the scores and your transcript. And so if you're looking at, for instance, computer science at the University of Limerick, you can get in touch with the US representative for UL and say, this is my situation, this is the program I'm interested, and they can have a pretty frank conversation with you that should give you an idea one way or the other. And that's the thing that I think is very different from the way admissions go in the US.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everybody. Because I think that for me, I love that most abroad institutions are really straightforward. And so there's less of this game, I feel, of and anxiety producing. And so I really like that about many abroad institutions. All right, moving on. So I just want to give you a sense of some general strengths of institutions. This is by no means a comprehensive list. There are so many institutions in Ireland, and many of these, they're large publics, and so they've got a lot to offer. So do not use this as like the end all be all. I just wanted to give sort of a taster so you know, like, oh, what is available? What are some of the strengths? So obviously, they've got a lot of humanities, music, dance, creative writing, arts, and humanities. I know that Galway and UCC are really strong in a lot of the arts here. Queen's is really amazing when it comes to international studies, conflict studies. But all of the university, or many of the institutions will have humanities-based programs. Trinity is also really famous for its humanities-based programs too. For sciences, obviously there's a lot. You could see, I don't know if you know all of the acronyms here, but there's a lot that's available. And this also includes the medical programs. So there are 4 medical programs in Ireland that take FAFSA. And those are NUI Galway, I think it's Trinity, UCD, and the Royal College of Surgeons. But like Limerick also has some really strong strengths in the sciences as well. And finally, I really want to highlight STEM and business. I think Ireland is a brilliant place for STEM or business, in part because I don't know if you know this, but Ireland in general, and Dublin in particular, it's sort of like the Silicon Valley of Europe. There are so many tech industries there. So it is a great opportunity to really take advantage of that practical experience. And it's everything from engineering, computer sciences, all of the tech industries and tech fields, business, economics, and hospitality is probably, that would be the strength of Shannon College of Hospitality. All right, moving on. All right, so this is a chance. I really want Hannah and Rachel to really share, like, what is it like to be a student, both from your academics as well as, you know, the non-academic parts of your life. What was it like for you to be in Limerick and Dublin? Rachel, start us off.
All right. So like academically, as soon as I arrived, I hadn't really realized that like all the different courses and programs were like, I knew I had applied to mine specifically, but I didn't know that's how it worked across the board. So that was interesting to learn. Like my program, there were only 50 people in the international business, but then in general business, there were like 300 or so, and then they could pick their own sort of minor degree in whatever field they wanted. I was one of very few full-time international students. We had so many study abroad just for a semester come through, and that was great to meet everybody and yeah, to build a foundation with my course throughout the years. I spent 2 years on campus, then a year abroad and working, and then my final year was in full lockdown. So that was an interesting kind of, like, I had to rely on the people I had met in my classes, and that was really great. I felt bad for everyone starting out new last year, but then in terms of non-academic, I kind of threw myself into clubs and societies and would highly recommend doing so as well, because it's a lot different than how it is here in the US, and it's a lot more community based, and I think encouraging a little bit than how it is here. So
Great, thank you, Rachel. Hannah, what was your experience like, either academically or co-curricularly, or both?
Yeah, academically, I think I had a little bit of a shock as well, in that I was used to sort of continuous assessment and then final exam model. And in Ireland, although I feel it's kind of changing a little bit, a lot of my classes had a big percentage of overall grade contributed to your final exam. So my first year or so was kind of reorganizing how I study, how I prepare, and continuously learn throughout the semester for those final exams. But other than that, my classes were very theoretically based, but also hands-on practical. By final year, I think I had a presentation and either team or individual project in every class. So got to meet a lot of people in the work we were doing, as well as, like I said before, practice those soft skills. So that was really great. And then being in Dublin was amazing. Dublin is a great city. I loved just kind of roaming around city center. It's not a huge city, so you can really get to know your way around, but it's very vibrant and there's lots to do for anything that you're interested in. I also got involved in some clubs that were related to commerce. And another thing that stuck out to me in particular was the accessibility to the rest of Europe. So you have Ryanair's super cheap flights. I loved the ability to go travel somewhere else for the weekend while I was over there for my college years. So it just kind of opens you up to a lot more possibilities.
Great, thanks, Hannah. All right, Braden, can you move on? All right, I'm gonna just quickly go over some supports. I wanna make sure we have enough time for Q&A. One thing I wanna highlight is there are disability services at all of these institutions. There is a difference. ADA, so the American Disability Act, does not follow you abroad. So you then are under the auspices of all of the laws of Ireland and how they handle it. In many ways, it's very similar, I'd say, to the US. They also include learning differences, but I just want to say it's not the same. One thing that is the same between the US and Ireland is that it's a very student-driven process at the university level. So at high school and before, parents are very much involved. At university, it's a student-driven process. But just know, like, this is something that exists. And Sarah, would you highlight those two universities that won awards recently in relationship to autism?
Yeah. So Dublin City University and the National College of Ireland, also in Dublin, are both recognized as autism-friendly universities. And very few institutions hold that distinction, but it just means they've made all sorts of changes, both like physical, process, all of, in all different areas to support and welcome students with autism to their campus.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. So I'm just going to quickly list off, there's many similarities to things that you would see in the States. So opportunities for personal development, identity-based support, there's student counseling and wellness services, similar to what we would see in the States, and also student health. You have to purchase your own insurance for abroad, but it is affordable. There are other academic supports and also a career development office. So very similar to what you'd see in the States, but not the same. All right, moving on. I want to go over it really quick. So if this is like turned you on and you're like, oh my God, I want more. So these are the 4 questions to ask yourself. Number 1 is, do you have a clear vision on what you want to study? For the most part, unless you choose one of the liberal arts programs, you need to know which program you're applying for and have a clear understanding of it. And you have to be interested in intercultural communication and competency and wanting to build that network. You also need to be a resilient problem solver. I feel like this is one of the biggest differences that I ran into when I was sending so many students abroad. Many students, I'd say in the US, we've got a huge infrastructure around supporting students. Not to say that that doesn't exist abroad, but abroad, they are truly treating you like an adult. And they expect you to be able to advocate for yourself and use the resources that are there. And the 4th thing is, are you a self-motivated learner who can study independently? Hannah was mentioning, there isn't always continuous assessment. So can you keep on track? I'd say these are good life skills to have anyhow, but I would say you want to make sure you're checking in with yourself to say, is this something that I'm ready for? All right, and next one. So your next steps are, you can attend webinars. We're gonna share something up with you about Ireland, going deeper with Ireland soon. You can search databases to find programs. The one I like for Europe is study.eu. You can examine rankings, that's QS and Times Higher Ed. And also, you're going to have some new best friends. I'm going to give you some university contacts and you can reach out to them. Then you need to research the entry requirements. Make sure you're looking over everything very carefully so you know, do my qualifications align? Also, reach out to the contact at that institution. And then finally, understand the finances. Do the math. What's the total cost? Do you need FAFSA 529, private loans? Ask the university about scholarships. All right. Braden, can you move on? So here's the free consultation. I wanted to make sure one lucky person gets this $2.99 package or the 60-minute call. So moving on to the next one, I'm going to teach you how to do that. Braden, can you move on? So this is my contact info. You'll notice at the bottom, I've got something called the Graduate Guide Abroad. So I would like, if you're interested in this, please go to my website. It's affordabledegreesabroad.com. And if you scroll down about middle of that page, you'll see you can download an undergrad guide abroad. So when you download that or enter into that, I will take that list and basically randomly choose somebody to win that particular package. And then Sarah, I want you to talk about also what's coming up with Ireland.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, Braden, can you move on to the next one?
I'll drop this link into the chat, but we're hosting a virtual study in Ireland undergraduate fair with 11 different colleges and universities from Ireland on Saturday, October 2nd. It's 10 to 2 Eastern time. So no, sorry, 1 to 5 Eastern time, 10 to 2 Pacific time. And we welcome you to join us. I don't want to spend too much time on this because there's lots of great questions that have come in for our students here.
All right, and next one. So I just want to make sure this is the university contacts. We're not going to spend any time here. Make sure you snap a pic. I will also be sending out a recording so you have this. So these are half the institutions. And then Braden, can you move on to the next one? Awesome, thank you. All right, so now's the time for answering some questions. So I'm in the Q&A right now. And Nicole's asking about housing in Dublin. Is on-campus housing available, or is it up to students to find their own housing? Really good question. Sarah, did you want to jump into that one, or Hannah, you could as well?
Yeah, I was hoping Hannah might take that since she's got the direct experience.
Yeah, so for my first year, international students had housing open to them, I think a couple weeks before it even becomes open to the Irish students. So, and they were constantly building more accommodation while I was there. So you should be able to secure housing on campus should you want. It's a little more difficult off campus. Dublin's very impacted everywhere, but there's also resources within UCD to find housing off campus to help you with that.
Awesome, thank you.
Can we just have real quick, Braden, can you go back a slide? Somebody's asking to be able to see. Thanks.
And then you can also, after a few minutes, Braden, go back to the other one too. So folks, if they need to snap that pic, can as well. Okay, so anonymous attendee, we've got, do students apply directly to individual universities, or do they use centralized Irish system? Ooh, good question.
Yeah, I can grab that. So there is no centralized Irish application system. You apply directly to the course at the university, but some of the universities, including UCD and UL, use the Common App, so you can also apply that way.
Great. All right. Somebody's asking, can you pick a CS as a program and also take a few classes in English. Computer science as a program and take a few classes. I'm assuming you mean like to study English literature. I generally find like when things are very disparate like this, computer science and English, it's harder to make that work. Like Trinity has, they're called joint programs, but they tend to be more adjacent fields than really disparate fields. The same is true for UCD, I know as well. They're more adjacent fields. Sometimes you will see like business and French or something along those lines as well. Do you know of a computer science and English, Sarah?
Well, no, I was just gonna ask our students here if they took any courses outside of their kind of business.
Yeah, I didn't myself personally, but I have friends who the university said, as long as you take all the required classes for your program, if you would like to take on extra additional for credit or no credit, you're welcome to, as long as there's availability.
Yeah, and my final year, I was able to take electives that don't quote me on this, but I think you could take them within the business school or outside of business courses in the final year.
Great. All right. Let me go back a little bit. Marcia's asking about a student visa, and I know, Sarah, you've answered a little bit of this already. The question is it does it cover the whole time, or do you have to keep reapplying every year?
It's a great question. So students from the US and also from Canada don't actually need to get a student visa to study in Ireland. So you'll get sort of like a registration permit once you're there, and the universities will help you with that, but you don't have to do anything ahead of time. That stay back visa just is to be able to stay and work for a year after you graduate.
Just on the registration that you mentioned there, yes, you have like, I think a month or to 3 months, depending on how long after you arrive in Ireland, to actually go and register with like your local immigration station. It's literally, I did it 4 times. You just walk in, you show them your papers. I think it's like €300 and you're out of there in 15 minutes. So it wasn't, I stressed out for nothing. It's okay.
Great, thanks. Somebody's asking the difference about AACSB and EQUIS, if they're both, what's the difference if they're both business accreditations? AACSB is American, EQUIS is European. Most US institutions, you'll see EQUIS. Some will have, or most US institutions, you'll see AACSB. Some will have EQUIS. But in Europe, you'll see a lot more double or triple crowns than I think you will see in the United States. And Nicole's asking, do they accept international students for foundation years? Good question.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's possible, Nicole. I was told by UCD most US students are coming with the other 2 options, either IB or just sort of our normal US diploma. All right, so we've got time for about 1 more question. I'm gonna really prioritize one that can have the most bang for the buck for most people. Let's see. Oh, those are so many good questions. It's so hard here. I know that if you haven't checked it out already, there is a lot already happening in the answered questions. So make sure you can hopefully make sure your question is getting answered. The last one we're going to go for is so for students, how did you get your housing?
I spent my first 2 years on campus. You just have to apply early. And I think, at least for the University of Limerick, they held kind of reserved accommodation for international students because they were expecting us. But then as well, I've had a lot of luck with like a local Facebook group or like rent in the area. If you look at like daft.ie or like Irish Rental, you can find student shared accommodation pretty easily. I know that there is a bit of a crisis going on right now for off campus, but there's enough people all the time popping up on there with things for rent. So.
All right, so we're at time. What I will do though is make sure that I've got all of the questions and can, it looks like most of them have been answered in the written form. So I will, but snap some pictures and make sure that it can be shared with everybody. So I want to thank our students, Hannah and Rachel, for giving so much of their time and so much of their knowledge. So if everybody can give them some love put it in the chat so they can feel it. And also Braden, because Braden also has shown up out of the goodness of his heart. So I really appreciate all of you. And Sarah, thanks for showing up too. Be sure to register for the virtual fair that's happening that Sarah mentioned on October 2nd too. Reach out if you have questions. I will be letting folks know about who won the contest. So again, go to affordabledegreesabroad.com, scroll down and download the undergrad guide. So thank you so much for spending your day with us, and reach out if you have questions. Take care. Bye-bye.